Hello and welcome to the Walk-Off, everybody. I'm Scott Belford, joined by the best co-host in the biz, Adam Mack. This is a Monday morning mailbag on a Tuesday afternoon, and of course, you are aware of what we're doing here, all right? So you get your questions and comments in, we comb through all of the interaction from the week, and we spit out our responses to your thoughts. So, to get a hold of us, you can do so on Twitter at Walk Off Podcast, on Instagram, the Walk Off Podcast. You can also shoot us a message via the Discord. And if you are a Patreon member, you get the Patreon bump, which means automatically your comments and your questions are addressed. And then we try to get to as many on YouTube as possible. Obviously, drop your comments below. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe and like button. It is always appreciated. And if you're listening wherever you get your podcasts audio wise, well, thank you very much. A tip of our hat to you. Before we dive into questions here, I will say I've got a big show going on Saturday night in Yellowknife, Northwest Territories. So if you are way up north, come out to the show. We're playing the Elks Lodge. You can get your tickets. True North Radio is presenting it. So you can just go to their website and the ticket link is right there. Or you can head to the Elks Lodge and pay for a ticket with cash. Still works. They still have cash out there, buddy.
Very cool.
Yellowknife.
Very cool.
It's 2010 there still. Cash exists. Yeah, so come on out, folks. On that, we will dive into your questions. So this one starts with a tweet from JAYS Talk. So they tweeted at us and put at Walk Off Podcast so that we knew they were talking to us. And he goes, "Tell me this doesn't win you the AL East. You can't." And then he had names at all of the positions. So we are going to go through this and see what you, Adam Mack, think. Okay, so he has at first base, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., our true superstar, our actual possible MVP candidate on a yearly basis. Lord knows he's probably going to finish third this year. We'll see where he winds up, but he has been very, very good. I mean,
a great start to our team.
He's even flirting with the batting title against Bobby Witt Jr. Now he's still got a ways to go. I don't think it's going to happen. Bobby Witt Jr. having an absolutely breakout, phenomenal season, and we already knew Bobby was a superstar before 2024, but definitely putting up career numbers. And then I just don't think there's any way that Juan Soto or Aaron Judge isn't ahead of him in votes. But besides those three, Vladdy should be right in there. So that's good news. So he's got him at first base. Second base, he has Will Wagner penciled in. Now, Adam, you and I were talking about this before we actually hit record, so even the Patreon missed it. There is kind of a general rule of thumb amongst Major League Baseball analysts, coaches, player development people, that to get a real idea of what a player is, you want to see 1,500 at bats out of them. So this is no shot on Will Wagner, or really the truth is almost this entire Blue Jays team. I know we were kind of looking it up, cherry picking here and there, but of all of our Buffalo boys, quote unquote, without a doubt, the guy with the most major league at bats is Ernie Clement, and he has 725. So he's not even, Ernie Clement, not even halfway to truly being able to look at the name and be like, hey, this is what this guy is. We can sort of expect his career numbers out of him. We don't know what Will Wagner is yet.
Right. So Will Wagner as our, let's just call him in this scenario, everyday second baseman. I'm okay with it, but we've used up all of our wiggle room already. I'll just say that. If you tell me 7 more players and it's like Juan Soto and, okay, sure. I'll put Will Wagner at second if we can't afford anything else because we just got Juan Soto. Sure. I'm listening. Will Wagner at second base. We'll circle back.
So Jay's Talk has Vladdy at first, Will Wagner at second. Now I'm going to say who he's got at DH now, just because I do think it plays into positional mix here. He's got Spencer Horwitz DHing. So I think in this scenario, when Vladdy needs off his feet, he'll be playing first. When Vladdy maybe plays some third base, I don't know how much they're going to experiment with that in 2025. However, it is a way to open up first base a little bit. Spencer Horwitz, a natural first baseman, a lefty. So definitely, that's the other thing with Will Wagner playing second base, is that the other position Spencer Horwitz plays is second base, and they're both lefties. And they're both lefties that offensively mirror each other. And we've talked about redundancies on this team and what it did to this team this year, with going back with KK and Dalton Varsho and then IKF and Ernie Clement. And so I don't know how much wiggle room, like you said, you hate it. Yes.
I hate it. Started strong. So far, we've gone downhill quickly, but I'm still listening.
I like Spencer Horwitz too, but
I do. Yeah. Friend of the show. It's been on multiple times. Great kid.
Absolutely. Great kid. And has
one of the best baseball players in the world.
And he has shown he can adjust. Listen, he has been up since June, and he's had some slumps and he's had some hot streaks, and he has been able to adjust so far. I'm going to give you a quick second here, Adam, to pull up Spencer Horwitz so we can just look at where he's at for at bats. But again, he had about a 2-week cup of coffee last year, and then the first real test didn't come until the middle of the season, 2024.
So he's now 101 games into his major league career, which has gotten him 324 at-bats, a 272 batting average with a 454 slug, good for an OPS of 815. It's an OPS
and that
plus
plays. That plays. Listen, if Spencer Horwitz is that, I'm actually fine with the lineup Jay's Talk has in here. And I have belief that Spencer Horwitz, of all the guys that are roll of the dices, late round guys, Spencer's probably the dude I would bet on to work out, because he has some maturity to him. He has some age. He's 27, and he's played AAA for almost off and on for 3 years, which is, the closest higher level. So it's not like some of these guys where they got the bump up to AAA this season and now called up again, right? So I like Spencer. But again, if you're going by the 1,500 at bats, he's still so far away from that. And to bet on him, it's a dangerous endeavor.
Let's remind me, the context of this question was, quote unquote, tell me this doesn't win the AL East
in 2025. You can't.
All right. So far,
we're only 3 players in here. Let's give them a break.
We started great. We've gone downhill. I can't wait to see the big reveals at the end.
Okay. In at shortstop.
Bo
Bichette.
Hey, that's one of the best shortstops in baseball, in my opinion.
I like it. In this scenario, I like to think it's 2022 Bo Bichette.
Ooh, a little positive regression.
Hey, that's right. That's right. So
I like that.
Playing
so far, 2 great answers, 2 disappointing answers. Okay.
Not winning the AL East yet.
Yeah.
Playing third base, Eugenio Suarez, who, of course, played third base for the Cincinnati Reds, moved to the Mariners. Now he's manning the hot corner for the Snakes in Arizona, and he has been red hot. Listen, he had a really slow start to his 2024, but has been carrying the Diamondbacks over the last couple months, showing big power and showing clutch hitting, which is great. Gino has always been, listen, by the way, I want to preface this with saying every baseball player is streaky. That's just the game. That's just the way it is. Eugenio is even streakier than most. He reminds me a little bit of Lourdes Gurriel Jr. in that when he's hot, he has the ability to carry a team. And not everybody, when they're at their hottest, can do that, right? There's a number of players out there that when they get hot, they're a whole other level. And then there's guys who get hot and they're just, they're a good above average baseball player. Gino's a superstar.
Yeah.
I do think when he's hot, by the way. Superstar when he's hot.
When he's not, he leads baseball in strikeouts.
Yes, he does.
He's done that 3 times in his career.
Now, the Toronto Blue Jays, by the way, are a team that strikes out very little. So adding a guy with pop that strikes out, that is a concession I'm prepared to make.
Okay.
What do you think about Eugenio Suarez at the hot corner next year? It improves the team?
Yes. Arguably, it improves the team for sure. I don't know how to argue against that.
Now we're going to get to the outfield.
Okay.
You know what? Let's do catcher first. He has Alejandro Kirk penciled in. I'm fine with that. I do think that this team is going to need to go out and get somebody more substantial than Tyler Heineman. We'll obviously get to the Brian Serven DFA and the Tyler Heineman acquisition. There is a question about it, so we won't spend too much time on that here. But I do think that they are going to need to go out and get another full-time major league catcher. And I say that, by the way, with the utmost respect to Tyler Heineman and Brian Serven, but there is a reason that these guys have been yo-yoed up and down between AAA and the majors the last few years. And it's that they don't hit.
Yeah. So I was going to say, can I say it with no respect to those guys? Like they're just not. They're not it.
They're not it. That's a good way of putting it. One of the best baseball players in the world, but they're not it.
Tyler Heineman is 33 years old and has 250 career at-bats.
There you go.
So maybe we just got to get him 1,300 more at-bats, and then we'll know who he is. Maybe there's a great hitter hiding in there. We just haven't given him enough at-bats at the major league level. Okay, so Kirk is catcher.
Kirk is catcher. So far, we've got, just to go over this again, Spencer Horwitz playing DH, Vladdy at first, Wagner at second, Bo at short, Gino at third, Kirky Manning behind the plate. In at right field, penciled in, George Springer, everyday right fielder. I think that is going to be how it plays out next year. This team just owes him $55 million over the next 2 years.
There's no trade value. We'd have to eat some prospects or some money to get rid of him. Yeah.
So it might
I want him gone, but I don't think he's gone. I think this is what he is. So sure, he can split time at DH with Spencer. That's fine.
34 years old, going into age 35 season. His bat has regressed substantially. Is there a world where he can sell out for more power?
No.
I'm believing in this less and less. I really am. I know that we talked about this going into the 2024 season, and I had a little bit more hope that he could.
You want to see him do the Joey Votto?
Yes. But not everyone can do the Joey Votto, obviously.
Yep.
In at center field, Dalton Varsho.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, of course. Best outfielder in baseball, defensively. Then in at left field, bringing in a little pop on the free agent market, currently suiting up for the Boston Red Sox, Canadian kid, Tyler O'Neill.
Hey, I like that.
Adam, do you want to pull up Tyler O'Neill's stats for me really quickly here? This is an interesting idea. Like, O'Neill, again, Canadian kid, so there is that aspect to it. Not that truly plays in, because his skill sets is definitely filling areas of need for this Toronto Blue Jays in 2025, which is having some power from these outfield bats, right? Is Tyler O'Neill going to hit enough long balls and play enough games to be worth signing? He has struggled a little bit staying on the field this year. And in general, I know Adam's got his numbers up right now. What do his games played and his home runs per year kind of look like?
So his games played for his career, he's now in year 7. 61 as a rookie, 60 the following season, 50, that was the COVID year, so 50 out of 60 actually there. 2021, he had 138 games played. That's a career high. He finished 8th in MVP votes and won a Gold Glove. 2022, he had 96 games played. Last season, he had 72 games played. And this year so far, he's at 105 out of 150.
Okay. And that's okay.
But he's got 31 home runs in 105 games.
And that plays.
That's a 45 home run pace.
And if you've got, let's say, there are big time options right now for the 4th outfielder position, and I think they're internal. I mean, Nathan Lucas continues to hit the cover off the ball. I don't know if you want to risk a 30-year-old utility guy. Joey Loperfido, I think, fits more in there if you're going to take an internal risk there. Lefty bat. And O'Neill's lefty, right? He's got a lefty. He's a
right-handed bat.
Yeah, right-handed bat, of course.
Right-handed bat,
left field. Plays left field, right-handed bat. Which is fine, being Dalton's a lefty. You have a 4th outfielder like Joey hitting left, and you can kind of do the splits there, depending on who's pitching. So there is, I'm going to run it down one more time here. I want everyone's comments on this. Grounds crew, what do you feel about a team that looks Vladdy playing first, Will Wagner second, Bo Bichette short, Eugenio Suarez third, Alejandro Kirk catching, Spencer Horwich DH, Tyler O'Neill left, center field Dalton Varsho, and right field George Springer. Is this an AL East? Is this the AL East winning team? Is this a playoff team? Is this a wild card team in your opinion? Is this not enough? Would love to know. Now listen, there are some big times intangibles with this because the bullpen is a flaming dumpster fire right now.
We do have to pretend that the bullpen was resolved and that we added some starting pitchers. That is not what we're addressing in this question, I have to assume.
Yes. So curious on everyone's thoughts on the offense there. Big thanks to Jays Talk.
So we just, what was the solution then? We get Tyler O'Neill, Eugenio Suarez, and we roll out the kids. I hate it.
But Adam, in this scenario, you have to envision that hopefully they got a high-end bullpen piece and a couple other arms. Hopefully they've got another starter that lengthens this and gives depth. I mean, to be competing for the AL East, I don't think that Eugenio Suarez and Tyler O'Neill does it on their own.
I guess all it does is it leaves second base to a kid, second base and DH. So it doesn't add a DH. And then George Springer's still in right field. George Springer's probably in right field. I probably can't see him moving as much as I would love to.
Yeah.
Sorry about my dogs barking there in the background. Post office is dropping off mail probably.
There you go.
Yeah. I mean, that's the power.
It does make the team better. I will say this. Tyler O'Neill and Eugenio Suarez added to this offensive lineup definitely makes this a better team.
Well, it had 60 home runs and 400 strikeouts. But that's 400 extra runs.
It is.
That's the way baseball goes. Yeah, I mean, I don't hate the either move, either Tyler
Yeah,
O'Neill or Eugenio Suarez as like pieces to
addition.
get this year.
Yeah,
Tyler O'Neill signed a 1 year, $5.8 million deal with the Red Sox. If we're getting him for something like that,
we
we're
won't.
paying him 6 to 8 million. I'm fine with that.
I don't think you hit 30 bombs without then being able to run it back for at least a multiple little deal with a little term, 2 or 3 years maybe.
I think
And
so.
I bet he's now worth at least 10 a year, I think. And I could be wrong. I'm always
Yeah,
really bad at
maybe.
guessing contracts.
Yeah. There's still the injury concern. Like he hit 34 earlier in his career.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't get him the deal he wanted, but he was also coming off of a 72 game campaign. So
Yes.
if that deflated his value, so be it. Yeah, I don't know. Like, whatever. Tyler O'Neill, Teoscar Hernandez, I think, whatever
Yeah.
name you want to put to it. Like, if we get a thumper that's just a power guy for a corner outfield spot, this team looks a lot better already. And then, you know, all of these scenarios, regardless of what hypothetical moves are made, are contingent on Vladdy being an MVP bat again
Mm-hmm.
and
And
Bo having a
Bo
bounce back season.
bouncing back. Absolutely.
And then also adding a starting pitcher or two and totally solving the bullpen.
Yeah.
So that's the barrel
Big
we're facing
asks.
down.
Big
Yep.
asks. All right, moving on. Julia DM'd us on Twitter. She goes, "Hey guys, why did the Jays DFA Brian Servant? He's been Bowden Francis's personal catcher and part of the reason he has done so well. Isn't this a little counterintuitive?" I'll say this. Brian Servant
Yep.
has done a phenomenal job catching Bowden Francis. He has.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Now, Servant was DFA'd. The Blue Jays went out and picked up Tyler Heineman, the Magic Man, right? Clubhouse magic is what Tyler
Mm-hmm.
Heineman is known for. He actually does like practice being a magician.
Yes.
He is, by the way, Heineman has caught Francis numerous times. They were both in AAA last year together. I will say this. Julia is right a little bit. But Brian Servant was not going to be Francis's personal catcher next year. He just wasn't, right? If the Blue Jays were actually going to compete, if they are going to compete, a catching tandem of Alejandro Kirk and Brian Servant doesn't play.
Correct.
Brian Servant was getting major league reps because Danny Jansen was traded and they didn't acquire a catcher at the deadline and they just needed to go from internal options, and Brian Servant just was the best internal option, the guy who had caught the most big league games and had the most experience. So you might as well get Francis used to adjusting to a new catcher now rather than
That's what I'm
next
thinking.
year. Like, honestly, if it does make a big difference with Francis, that's an adjustment Bowden's going to need to make anyways.
He's got what, 2 starts, maybe 3 the rest of the way?
Yeah. Yeah, like we're down to it.
So, yeah, I mean, you said everything there is to say. Like he's not Bowden Francis is not Alek Manoah. Um, the upside of Francis from what we've seen the last 4, 5, 6 starts
7.
still isn't the upside that we know Manoah is capable of. Now, I don't know who's better the rest of their career. Bowden Francis might have,
a much better career
from 2024 and beyond. You might look at the back of the baseball card and say Bowden Francis was the better pitcher, taking out the good seasons that Manoah showed us. But yeah, that's not a guy that you can invest a catching position into. Like we can't.
He's not R.A. Dickey with Josh Tolley, right? Like, like he's not such a high profile guy. He gets his own catcher.
Now, Now, the other part of this question, though, is Tyler Heineman? And I would say also no.
Yeah.
He's not the solution to catch 50 to 60 games next year, spelling Alejandro Kirk.
It is an
But,
interesting move with like 13 games to go or whatever, like.
well, I think here's where I'm at from like a mental performance department standpoint is right now, Bowden Francis has all the confidence in the world, right? Let's say we don't drop Servin and he has two more starts and they're amazing. And then in the offseason, we drop Servin, we bring in anybody else. And now we go into next season. Francis is our number 5. And now he's facing a new catcher for the first time. Like it just, it doesn't feel like that's the best time to make the move. Whereas now he either rides the confidence wave that he's on through Tyler Heineman and goes, I don't care who's back there. I'm one of the best pitchers in the world and watch me dance. Great, right? That's your best case scenario. Then you make a move this offseason, you go into next spring and you go, it doesn't matter who the catcher is. Yeah, Servin was good for you, but look how you pitched great those last 2 games with Tyler Heineman. You're a stud. You got it, big boy, right? Or he totally collapses. And either way, you go, okay, well, he's not our number 5 for next year. Like, it answers questions, I guess, potentially. Maybe?
Yeah, no, I'll agree with that.
Because
I'll agree
otherwise, it
with
is
that.
just like a bit of a nothing move. Like, it's not like Tyler Heineman is this offensive juggernaut who it's like, okay, well, he's not as good of a catcher, but, man, can he thump? Like, he's terrible offensively, also.
Adam, I also think that a lot of what Brian Servin was doing was coming from the analytics department anyways. Yeah,
Yeah,
like, don't get me wrong, there's
the
obviously
pitch
some
calling and
personal
stuff for sure.
there's personal relationships that develop between battery mates, and there
Mm-hmm.
is an intangible side to this.
Yep.
100%, absolutely. But it's not like the information Brian was getting was like, this isn't 1985 where he's spending his time after the game smoking
Mm-hmm.
cigarettes, going through binders of old stuff and kind of
Right.
doing the recon himself, right? This is a very professional organization that has an entire staff of people feeding their
Mm-hmm.
catchers information on how to best go about calling a game for their pitchers. So, on one hand,
That's
yes,
true.
Brian Servin has done a great job with Francis over the last 7 starts in particular. That said, I don't give Servin much credit for what he was doing.
Do you think there's any aspect, this is me just being like conspiracy nut, and a little bit negative here, but do you think there's any aspect of like, we played this game before and it cost us Gabriel Moreno? Like we got rid of Gabriel Moreno because Alek Manoah was comfortable. I know this isn't exactly the full picture of why we traded Gabriel Moreno. Obviously, the other team needs to want a guy too. But like we did keep Kirk, and whether it was 1% or 20% of the reason, a factor was his
He was
relationship with
Manoah's
Alek
guy.
Manoah.
Yeah.
He was Manoah's guy. We heard that all the time on the broadcasts, the pre-show, the post-show, the relationship that those two had, the comfort that they had. And now Manoah's kind of nothing, and we're stuck with Kirk. It just maybe we like don't want to go down that road with fucking Brian fucking Servin, is what I'm saying, right? Where it's like,
Yes.
hey, we've been burned by this game before. You'll pitch to whoever the fuck we put back there, and you'll like it. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's the parent in me, but it's kind
Yeah.
of like, no. Dad gets to pick the radio station, and you're gonna like it. I don't know.
I
I don't know.
It's hard not to argue with that. So moving on here, we're going to get to our last Twitter DM, which was from Trevor. He says, been thinking about Vlad. Yordan Alvarez is 1.5 years older, just turned 27. Career 23 wins above replacement, 166 weighted runs created plus. His career numbers is higher than Vlad's this season and 30 points higher than Vlad's career number. signed for 6 years, 115 million. Now, before we move on, I will say, yeah, the Astros did a great job of threading the needle with timing it perfectly to lock Yordan Alvarez up. Yordan Alvarez is a fucking bargain right now. And obviously, to compare what his numbers is to Vlad's and where Vlad's contract lands is it's a muddy area here, and there's no way Vlad signs anything close to Yordan's. Although I 100% get what Trevor's saying here. Much as Vlad has been impressive, and as much as he is young, there has to be a limit to what we pay a first baseman. Yes, he has a great game on D the other day at third and at first. His defense looks good. I understand that. But I think 162 games in 2025. I'm not into making many judgments about 2025 in this last 4 or 5 days of spring training vibe games going on now to finish out a woeful 2027 style 2024. I like this comment because for a couple of reasons. I like this comment because he's also not saying don't sign Vlad.
Okay.
But he is making a pretty good point about how much money do you have to spend at first base?
Okay.
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know what too much there is. There's definitely a number where you're going to shoot yourself in the foot a little bit in filling other needs if you put all of your eggs in one basket, right? It's the eggs in a basket metaphor, and maybe Vlad's basket is the one that should be carrying the majority of the eggs. And if that's the case, pay the man. I'm a huge Vlad believer. I'm even kind of at the point now where I think we could get pretty creative in 2025 if we wanted to, where Vlad could play 60 games at first or 60 games at third, which would really open up first base for either Spencer Horwitz to play some time there and open up for a full-time DH, right? So if you can kind of flip Vlad back and forth between first and third, maybe you can get away with paying him a little bit more. I don't know what the answer is here, but I would love to hear you, the grounds crew's thoughts on this. Where are you at on Vladimir Guerrero Jr.? How much is too much? At what point do you start to hurt your ability to fill in other areas of need? Rogers is one of the richest ownership groups in baseball, but they're like Adam. There's a limit, right? Like we're not talking Steve Cohen here.
I don't know. I mean, there's so many questions here. I mean, first of all, the idea of him playing third base and 300 million being an easier pill to swallow at third. Yeah, I guess, if we're going to then reinvest it somewhere else. But if we're not, who cares where he's playing? Like, in a hypothetical, how much do you give Eugenio Suarez?
10 mil? I don't know. Like what's Gino getting
Sorry,
paid
I
right
lost you.
now?
How much mil? Fucking lost you
10,
again.
15? I don't know. What's his
So
current?
do you think? Sorry for like clicking here on the keyboard.
Yeah. Because I get what you're saying, right? Like
he's getting 11 million.
11 million. Season. So yeah, if you can go out and get Gino for another 10 mil, like I think that's Kevin Kiermaier's money. I think that's a lot. That's money much better spent than on Kiermaier was, right?
Right, but like, so does moving Vlad to third, is there a first baseman you can get for 10 million that makes you feel that much better? Like if you're just looking at, okay, I'm going to spend 40 to 45 million on my corner infielders. Who cares if it's 30 goes to the left side or 30 goes to the right side? I will also say that this is part of the reason I wanted him to play third base all of this year. As soon as the team was done, move him to third and let's figure it out, because either he can and then it's an easier pill to swallow. So like on the one hand, I do agree with the sentiment. because I think throwing Pete Alonso at first base makes this team significantly better.
Yes.
I'll take Vlad and Pete over Vlad and Eugenio. That's just my preference.
Yes.
But as far as the like how much is too much at first base, like he's in a position of leverage on us. Like he's going into free agency after this season. If we're only willing to pay what, let's say 25 million over 10, 12, 15 years, whatever the number is, but it's AAV of 25. We need one other team to go, hey, we'll stick you at third. Or, like we saw what you could do at third. We'll pay you 35 million to play at third. Like, even if you're not that good at third, we know you'll figure it out and your bat's going to be amazing. So come on down to Arizona and thump with Lourdes again. So we just are in a position where it's like, can we afford to pay him? Or is the question, can we afford to lose him?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because that's ultimately what the next, we just spent 20 minutes off the top of this show going, is this a good team with Bo and Vlad and Tyler O'Neill and Eugenio Suarez? But have fun building that in 2026 when we don't even have Bo and Vlad.
Yeah.
When we're going, okay, is this a good team? We got Kirk behind the plate. We got Tyler O'Neill, Eugenio Suarez. And then we got Ernie Clement, Will Wagner, and Spencer Horwitz. That's our infield. And then our outfield is one more year of George Springer and Dalton Varsho. And then what's coming down the pipe? I don't know. Maybe a Elvis. It's bleak, the thought of losing him.
I agree.
You don't have to be a rocket scientist to go into negotiations from Vlad's camp and point that out. Be like, okay, well, here's our number. It's 35 million or whatever the number is, 37, 32, whatever. Here's our number. Do you want to just pay it and we'll skip free agency? Or do you want us to go test free agency and then maybe our number goes up? Because if the Dodgers offer us 37, our new number is 37 and a half.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know. I'm also uncomfortable with the idea of giving a first baseman 300 million. I will say that. But Yordan Alvarez is also mostly a DH. I know he plays left field sometimes, but I think 2/3 of his Major League Baseball games have been as a DH. And and he's older.
Yeah.
So I know first base is gets joked about as this spot for people who are bad at defense, but it's that's where most of your plays are all game. Vladdy does a pretty darn good job. He's got a Gold Glove to show for it. Think of that what you will. He's not a hole defensively.
For sure. And you know what? The big question mark is will his body hold up? Is he a Prince Fielder type or is he a David Ortiz type? Right? Yeah. We've seen those big bodies last till they're 40. We've seen those big bodies break down in their early 30s. So it is a risky endeavor to invest the sort of term, forget about the money, the sort of term it will take to lock up Vladdy. Drop your comments.
I'd have more faith in Vladdy to stay healthy for the next 15 years than Bo.
Okay. Drop your comments, Grounds Crew. Would love to hear what you think. Moving on to Patreon. Of course, if you are a Patreon member, you get automatically into the mailbag if that is your desire. This is from Discord, which is one of our Patreon perks. By the way, this is not the time to bring this up, but I do there are a couple people who need help getting into Discord, Adam, that we can talk about after the show. Okay. So this is Ian, or for those of you in Discord, his handle is SCTI, and he posted Chris Black's tweet in Discord with the comment, "I love this idea." So, of course, Down to Black on Twitter, Chris Black, friend of the show. He's been on numerous times. He's done Baseball Town, great guy, and truly one of the more analytical minds covering baseball in this country. So He goes, American League North has a nice ring to it. No question mark. And basically, what baseball has been talking about is expansion. And so they would rejigger the entire formula, the divisions, everything if that happened. And so in this, Chris has the American League East, North, Central, West. So 4 divisions. And in the American League North, he has Toronto, Cleveland, Detroit, Pittsburgh. And then the teams that he has joining the league would be Nashville and Charlotte. And yeah, you would need to, I'm not going to go through the whole thing here, but yeah, I could get behind a American League North division of Toronto, Cleveland, Detroit, and Pittsburgh. I feel like the Jays compete more with those 3 teams than they do with the Red Sox and the Yankees and the Rays and the Orioles right now, as we sit dead last in the AL East.
Okay, so expansion of 2 teams, one to the American League, one to the National League, right?
That's right. The way Chris has it broken down here too, Adams, is there would be 10 games played against each divisional team. So that's 30 games. And then you would intra-league opponents. So everyone else in your league, you're playing 7 times for 84 games. And then interleague opponents, you're playing three games each. So 1 series each. My guess is each year it would go back and forth, home and away for the last 48.
I mean, obviously, I'm in favor of divisional realignment.
I am too. Playoff format, by the way, he has top team in each league earns first round bye. 3 other division winners host wild card round. Best of 3 non-division winning records in each league earn wild cards. So
there's 4 divisions?
4 divisions, 2 wild card teams, and then
wild card teams play each other? Or does like the top 2 wild cards
in each league earns first round bye. 3 other division winners host wild card round.
Okay, so 7 teams make the playoffs.
The top team gets a bye, and then the other 3 teams would host the wild card teams. So I guess in this scenario, the playoffs are expanded in his world, which you
One
love.
Extra team.
One extra team.
I think that's what the NFL does.
Yeah.
Yeah, my biggest gripe with this for expansion is that we don't have enough good players for 30 teams.
Yeah.
Like, we certainly don't have enough good pitching for 30 teams.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I agree with you. I think they're going to do it anyways and just water down the talent pool, but I agree with you.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about the fact that there isn't enough high leverage bullpen arms for every team. Like there's like 7 of them.
Yeah. How many good starting pitchers are there? 60, 80 good starting pitchers that you'd feel like good with before you get to
like 2 a team? Yeah, probably.
Kind of feels like, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, of course it's going to happen because there's too much money on the line for it not to, right? Like, the owners want it for obvious reasons, and then the players union will want it because that's more jobs for the players. That's right, 52 more jobs on a 26-man roster times 2. So
moving on with by the way, if you wanted to check out Chris Black's work at Down to Black, he's got the full breakdown of how the divisions would work, who's in what, how the playoffs would go about, all of that good fun stuff. All obviously hearsay, but it's fun to try and figure that out. Back to Discord here. Scott Crustables says Garrett Cole putting up 4 fingers and walking Devers on his own is pretty interesting. I wonder what Boone thought about that. Did you get a chance to see the highlight of that?
Yeah, I don't like it. I mean, at first I didn't have a problem with it, but then it was pointed out that, like, that's your ace. Your ace should never be afraid of a guy.
Yeah.
And I have a hard time disagreeing with that point.
especially with like such a divisional rival like the Red Sox. Like it's
Mhm.
one thing if he's facing Shohei Ohtani and it's like,
Mhm.
the Dodgers and you see
Sure.
them 3 times a year and he's like,
Yeah.
I don't even want to deal with it, just go. Right. But
Yeah.
it's a whole other thing to like have a guy that you're going to face over the next half a decade and already have it in his head that I'm this guy's daddy, right? Like,
Yeah. 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 My gut instinct initially when I saw it and heard it was like, oh, people are making a big deal out of nothing. But like literally, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, that is not good.
yeah.
That is not good. But I don't know. Then again, like when Aaron Judge was hitting 63 home runs, was it Robbie Ray pitching against him or Gossman? Like whoever it was, I was like, let's just fucking walk this guy. Like I don't want
Yeah.
63 to be in Toronto. Like get your ego out of it and just put him on base. Like don't be stupid. Devers is not Aaron Judge. Yeah, I don't know.
I think it's
I don't know.
funny. I like it. I mean, I don't like that Cole did it. I think he shouldn't have done that. But I do love the panic that it has put into
Oh yeah.
Yankees fans'
Yankees
hearts
town.
that like their stud ace pitcher that they're paying more than any starting pitcher in baseball with
Hmm.
nobody on and nobody out just is like, don't even want to see him. Go to first.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good, but yeah. Yeah, I don't
All
know.
right. We're
Weird.
going to wrap up here on YouTube comments. We'll start with Scott Carter. He goes, I don't know about the international series, but the Jays should do one home series each year somewhere else in Canada. It could even be done in a way that works for the other team also, i.e., Seattle and Vancouver, Rockies and Calgary, Houston and Edmonton, Nationals in
Houston and
Montreal.
Edmonton, just because they're both oil.
Yep, you get it, Adam. Nationals in Montreal or Boston and Halifax. And first weekend in August would be great. I kind of think that's a fun idea. I mean,
Yeah, I think it's great.
I'd love to watch a major league game in Calgary. Like that would be
I mean,
crazy.
the biggest downside is the huge loss in revenue by
Yes.
not having a 40,000 seat stadium,
Yes.
right? Like that's the tough pill to swallow for the Blue Jays to
Oh, I don't
consider
think it would
doing
ever
that.
happen. I don't think it would
Yeah.
ever happen, but it would be fun. And you know what? There's some football stadiums that they could probably, we watched what they did with those soccer stadiums. You could probably pull it off in places like Winnipeg or Calgary or Edmonton type of thing, right? Like it wouldn't be perfect, but
What if they just did like set it up in the corner of the end zone and then you just had like a green monster out in right field, right? So you had like a normal depth left field because you have the full length of the football field to work with.
yeah,
But then right field, you just go up 40 feet and cut that off. You could do that in a football field.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't know what the right answer is there. It's sad it'll never happen, but it would be fun and I'd love
it
it
would be
for
fun.
sure.
I would love it too. This next YouTube comment is from Patrick McCotham. And he went, we're number 9. We're number 9. That is, of
Yep.
course, a reference to the fact that we were number 9 on the Canadian baseball podcast charts.
Hey, there
That's
you go.
all because of you folks. But yes, when you're not able to chant we're number 1, hey, we're number 9. We're number
Beauty,
9. I'm fine with
beauty.
it. Mike TKO messaged us and said, this is from YouTube. He said, I disagree on the 27-minute mark here, where you were talking about Atkins and Shapiro, and that he says there will be no 2015 style trades because you were mentioning Ross's job is on the line. And if he's
Yeah.
not promoted out of the GM spot, which are reshuffled or whatever, right, that
Hmm.
he may feel his feet to the fire and be more prepared to take some risks that maybe he hadn't what isn't in his DNA to normally do. He goes, Ross does not have any say. They govern by committee. They run moves by 25 different people before making decisions. Yeah, maybe I don't know for sure. But tell me this team doesn't feel like it's being run by the Liberal Party of Canada. Hashtag trust the process. Hashtag positive regression. So, yeah, I mean, if nothing else, this front office is disliked by as many people as the Liberals are, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get into the politics of it,
No.
but I would say I would still bet on this being the busiest offseason we've had in 5 years.
Yeah, I kind of feel that way too. I think that a
Whether it's
lot of
Ross Atkins is at the helm, furiously digging to save his job,
or
or
James
James
Click is
Click
being
take
yeah,
over and is like, hey, we're fucking overhauling the whole thing.
yeah.
But I don't think a
Stop your
new face
comments,
comes in
Grounds.
and goes, oh yeah, let's run it back. Like, I just don't think that's happening.
Grounds crew, this is where I am really interested on your opinion. What do you think of Mike Tko's stance? Do you think that this front office is a lost cause and they don't have the gumption, the balls, if you will, to make some major moves? Do you think we're going to see a very similar team to what we're watching right now? Or do you think that we're going to be watching a lot of these guys who have less than 1,500 ABs being shipped off for more experienced, more predictable outcomes at the plate?
Hmm.
I don't know.
Hmm.
Time will tell. We're going to wrap up on this last comment here. This is from Seven Iriotti. He goes, and I'm going to try not to read this like I'm being a whiny little brat here because I don't want to like show that I'm being biased with negative comments. We get to negative comments too, folks.
I'm already over it and I'm ready to leave this Zoom chat. So go ahead.
Yeah, he goes, I cannot believe sometimes how you guys aren't up on the latest MLB JAYS news. The Biggio, all capitalized
Capitals.
news, isn't the first time I was surprised you didn't know news that you should know since you are podcasters on MLB. Question mark, question mark. This is in reference to the fact that it took us about 10 seconds to remember that Biggio was now on a minor league contract with the Braves after he had been DFA'd from the Giants, who had picked him up from the Dodgers. So, if you
Yes,
don't
apologies for not tracking the fourth team that Biggio's been on in a month.
in the last 6 weeks, yes. Then he goes, Dan and Buck mentioned it on TV. I assume you didn't watch the game, which surprises me since you were talking Jays news. I was at that game, so of course I didn't hear the broadcast. Apologies that I missed why they shuffled the bullpen game around
I
when
love how
Bassett was
snarky we
originally.
are right now. This is great. And I watched
Uh,
Jason 30, so I didn't catch it, as I said
yeah,
on
and
the
that was the other thing.
podcast.
And we both mentioned that I was at the game and that you watched Blue Jays in 30. All I can say
Can I
is
can I add one thing to this too,
yes.
which they're really not going to like to hear out of my lips? Um, 90% of the games I watch are muted.
Yeah.
I'm not listening to Dan and Buck almost ever. So
We all
whether we're in
watch
a
games in
playoff
our own
hunt
way.
or not, yeah,
Yeah.
it's that's the beautiful thing about baseball. There's a lot of downtime, and it's a great uh thing to have on while I'm cooking dinner or folding laundry or whatever. That's the beautiful thing. So yeah, they say a lot of shit that I don't catch.
Yeah. Me too. I mean, I it depends on how I'm feeling. Like sometimes I'll sit and hang on every word Dan and Buck say. I really enjoy how they call a
Mhm.
game. And then there's lots of times where I would just rather have music playing and have the game on and kind
Yeah,
of be drinking beer on my deck that way. I don't
yeah.
know. Everyone watches their own way. And I was live at the game there, so I missed the broadcast and I just
How dare you?
yeah,
You're
how
having
dare
fun
I?
wrong, Scott.
Yeah. Anyway,
All
so
right.
there you go. Apologies to everyone who was as upset as Buddy Boy there was that we forgot that Biggio was on the Braves and it took us 15 seconds to get it out instead of instantly like professional broadcasters would. You know what the difference is between professional broadcasters and us, though? They make money.
Paycheck.
So.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. We do really appreciate all the comments, whether they're positive or shitty, like Buddy Boys was. We're happy to have you on board. We wouldn't be number nine, if it wasn't for you folks. So truly appreciate it. Drop your comments and questions below. We'll try to get to as many of them next mailbag as we can. And on that, take care of yourselves. Also, Yellowknife, come out to the show on Saturday. It'd be great to see you. Cheers.